You never really know your neighbors until they start stealing from your front porch. What began as strange glances and passive remarks quickly spiraled into theft, vandalism, and a false police report. But in this quiet neighborhood, one woman refused to stay silent. This is the story of how a doorbell camera, a stack of stolen packages, and the truth unraveled a dangerous lie right next door. When Ben and I moved to Springfield, Illinois, we thought we had finally found peace. After years of bouncing between apartments, the quiet cul-de-sac felt like a dream. The neighbors were polite. The streets were lined with trees. And the only sound at night came from the rustling of leaves. We bought a modest house with a small garden and a front porch that I instantly fell in love with. I worked from home as a freelance graphic designer, and Ben worked at a nearby hospital. Life, for once, felt simple. That feeling lasted exactly 4 weeks. Her name was Jessica. She moved into the house next door, a narrow, gray bungalow with ivy creeping up the side, and from the moment she arrived, something felt off. At first, it was small things. She stared too long. She commented on our flowers as if they offended her. She once stood in her yard for nearly 10 minutes, just watching as I arranged patio furniture. Then came the remarks. Must be nice to have so many deliveries. She'd call out as FedEx dropped another box on our porch. I smiled politely, even joked back once or twice, but it wasn't long before the smiles faded and the comments sharpened. All those packages. "You sure you're just a designer?" she asked one afternoon, narrowing her eyes like she was probing for something. The first package that went missing was a printer. I double-checked the delivery photo. It was clearly there, on the porch, at 10:42 a.m. by 11:30. When I stepped out to grab it, it was gone. I convinced myself it had been misdelivered. Then a box of coffee pods disappeared, then towels. I filed claims. But something didn't sit right. The losses were too specific, too consistent. That's when I bought the camera. It was nothing fancy, just a basic doorbell cam with motion alerts. The day after I installed it, I got an alert while on a Zoom call. I muted myself, pulled up the feed. There she was, Jessica, walking casually onto our porch. She looked both ways, picked up a package, and tucked it under her sweater like it was part of her afternoon routine. I felt my throat tighten. I hit record. My hands were shaking when I called Ben. That evening, we sat in silence watching the footage on repeat. There was no doubt. She was stealing from us. We called the police the next morning. Officer Roberts showed up a few hours later. She was professional, skeptical at first, but once she saw the footage, her expression hardened. She knocked on Jessica's door. I watched from the window. Jessica opened it, like she had been expecting someone else. Her smile faded when she saw the badge. Within minutes, she was trying to explain it all away. "Oh, I was just holding it for them," she said. "I thought it might get wet." When the officer mentioned the footage, Jessica's tone changed. "Well, I opened it just to make sure it wasn't something dangerous. People get strange packages. You know." The headphones she took, opened, and clearly used. Jessica was issued a citation for petty theft. We thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. The next morning, our front yard was covered in toilet paper, dozens of rolls, tossed into trees, soaked from the morning dew. I checked the camera again. There she was, sneaking across the lawn at 3:12 a.m., giggling to herself as if it was a teenage prank. Another call to Officer Roberts. Another citation, this time for vandalism. I started to feel uneasy in my own home. Every motion alert made my stomach twist. I stopped going out onto the porch. I moved my desk away from the front window. Ben suggested we put up a fence, but that felt like letting her win. Instead, I started documenting everything, every alert, every interaction, every strange noise at night. I created a folder labeled Jessica Evidence. Then came the breaking point. A week after the toilet paper incident, I answered the door to 2 police officers with serious expressions. They said they had received an anonymous tip that our house was involved in drug activity. My heart pounded. I let them in. They looked around, saw my design equipment, the boxes of paper and tablets and samples. Nothing even remotely suspicious. One of the officers muttered an apology before they left. That night, I went through my camera archive. No unfamiliar visitors. No deliveries that could be misinterpreted. But then, 2 days later, a neighbor approached me in the driveway. "Hey," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "I think your neighbor hired some guys to watch you. They've been parked across the street in a black sedan, asking questions. Said they were private investigators. Jessica had hired investigators to dig into my life." That night, Ben and I agreed to press charges. We gathered our documentation, contacted a lawyer, and moved forward with a court date for the original theft charge. When we showed up to the courthouse, Jessica acted like it was all beneath her. She wore oversized sunglasses and chewed gum like she was the victim. The judge didn't buy her act for a second. We presented the video footage, the repeat offenses, the false police report. Jessica tried to say it was all a misunderstanding, that she had concerns about our packages, that she was just trying to protect the neighborhood. The judge fined her heavily, 100 hours of community service, a restraining order. Her smugness collapsed in real time. She avoided eye contact as she walked out, hands trembling, lips pressed tight, but the damage lingered. For weeks afterward, I flinched at motion alerts. I avoided the porch. I worried what she might do next. But then something unexpected happened. Jessica moved out. One morning, a moving truck pulled up. By the end of the day, the house was empty. No goodbye, no warning, just gone. Her new neighbors, an older couple named Rita and Sam, came by to introduce themselves a few days later. I told them, gently, what had happened. They listened, wide-eyed, and thanked us for the warning. The next day, they installed a doorbell camera. Springfield felt peaceful again. But it wasn't the same kind of peace as before. It wasn't the naive peace of believing bad things don't happen in quiet neighborhoods. It was the cautious calm of knowing that when they do, you have to be ready to stand up, to document, to speak up. Jessica's name still comes up now and then, in whispers and warnings. Someone heard she tried pulling a similar stunt in another neighborhood, but with less success. Technology travels fast, and people talk. As for me, I kept working. My deliveries arrived without incident. My garden started to bloom. The camera still sits by the door, blinking quietly like a silent guardian. Every now and then, I watch the old footage, not out of fear, but to remind myself of what I endured and what I overcame, because sometimes justice doesn't arrive with a bang. Sometimes it arrives with a quiet click and a very clear video.